this is BLIND+HARD playing games while rambling incoherently into a microphone. Why? Well, just because I can, and this time I'll be playing Werewolf the Apocalypse Earthblood Blind. Now, I'm a big fan of the Old World of Darkness setting as a whole, and Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines is probably my favorite video game of all time, but in fact, I actually like Werewolf the Apocalypse more than I do Vampire the Masquerade as a setting, so I was very excited when I first heard about this game, but unfortunately since then I've heard nothing but bad things about it. Supposedly at best it's painfully mediocre, and at worst it's absolute crap, so that's a pity. But I like the setting enough that I wanted to try it on my own and decide for myself whether it's as bad as people say it is. I know quite a bit about Werewolf the Apocalypse lore. I'm by no means an expert, but I know, more than a newcomer, so I will try to comment on various pieces of the lore as they appear in game, and about any contradictions or interesting portrayals that the game might choose. And now, without further ado, let me start a new game. Okay. Now, I will be playing on hard. I am somewhat of a paradox when it comes to video games, because I'm bad at games. Like, I have poor reflexes and poor hand-eye coordination. It's difficult for me to accomplish tasks that require, quick action. And to be honest, sometimes I feel I'm actually dumb. Like, I'm really not that smart. If anything, my biggest sort of advantage is the fact that not an advantage, but my biggest positive is the fact that I realize that. Like, I think I think I'm pretty cognizant of my own flaws. Overall, I wouldn't say I'm particularly good at games, and in fact, sometimes it might be downright painful to watch me play, but on the other hand, at the same time, I enjoy playing at higher difficulties because I like the feeling of accomplishment that comes from finishing a game set on a higher difficulty, even if finishing it is difficult or time-consuming. So I am going to play on hard for players looking for a demanding challenge. Let's do that. Trucker's Mill vicinity. The pack of Trucker's Mill is set on driving the Endron Corporation out of their territory. After several weeks of preparation, they finally have a plan. I am going to talk more about Endron, but not now. Let's see how the game introduces them.
The Wild, the Weaver, and the Wyrm. 3 primal forces from which the world Gaia springs. The Wild is creation, formless and abundant. The Weaver shapes, making order out of chaos. The Wyrm, whose purpose was to destroy the old, to make room for the new, went mad. Now, a force of corruption, feeding on greed, malice, and hate. It ravages Gaia. Through its unwitting accomplices, mankind. The balance between those 3 forces is long gone now. Insidiously, the Wyrm gains more and more ground every day, vitalized by the damage humans have brought to the Earth. We, the werewolves, remain. born of man, beast, and spirit. We are the vindication of Gaia and the wild.
All right. They should be ready now.
The best way to get Endron out of the region is to attack their bottom line. We have a plan to convince them there's no profit to be had here. Ludmilla, if you please.
I've recently gained access to the system that controls all the on-site oil pumps. That's our target. We tamper with the pumps and send dummy data to the system to make them think their oil field has run dry.
Will that really be enough?
According to the internal files I got my hands on, they treat unprofitable sites like gangrenous limbs. They'll give this one the chop right away.
Now, the characters don't really make a great first impression as far as graphics go. They look very dead-eyed, and the animations are like uncomfortably stiff. But fortunately for the game, I'm not the type of player that pays that much attention to graphics anyway, so there's still chance for this game to win me over in other ways. Now, as reasonable as the plan might seem at first glance, obviously a corporation is ruled mostly by profit, so if you would convince them there is no profit to be had, it would be reasonable to expect them to leave. But it's not as easy in the Werewolf the Apocalypse setting, and specifically not as easy with Endron, because Endron is one of the subsidiaries of the mega corporation called Pentex, and Pentex, the upper echelons of Pentex are actually aware of the supernatural, and they willingly serve the Wyrm. They might stay even if there is no natural resources to be extracted, just because destroying the Earth itself is actually a goal to them. It pleases their Dark Master, so they might do things that from a profit-based standpoint don't make sense, but they do make sense if you're a literal servant of evil, which the upper echelons of Pentex are. The everyday line workers, they have no idea about it. They are just regular people, but the board of directors is comprised of, vampires, black spiral dancers, which are fallen werewolves. They are basically the evil tribe of werewolves that have fallen into the service of the Wyrm. There are, other people like dark sorcerers. Basically, the board of directors of Pentex is entirely cognizant of the fact that magic exists, that the supernatural creatures exist, and they are cognizant of the fact that they themselves are serving a force of ultimate evil, and they don't care. So it might not be as easy as that.
I don't know. Even if we do manage to push them out, they'll only set up somewhere else. We need to hurt them, bring them down, not chase them away.
We've already talked about this, Cahal. They're too close to the cairn. If we stage an attack, they'll look for the ones who did it. I don't want Endron's eyes on our home. Our best option is to work in the shadows.
But if something goes wrong, my wife ends up on her own in enemy territory. I don't like it.
I'm going to be fine, Cahal. We've been preparing this for weeks. We've calculated the risks.
And if there's any sign of trouble, you and I go in and retrieve her. But I'd rather we stay covert. Ludmilla will have the easiest time on her own.
I'm heading out. I want to be done before daybreak. Take care of Adana while I'm away. I think she's going a little crazy all cooped up in here.
Don't worry, I'll talk to her. You just focus on your mission.
Cahal, I've got this. I love you. See you soon.
Now, the intro made a decent enough job at succinctly explaining some of the metaphysical groundwork for the setting of Werewolf. You know, the triad. It talked about the three powerful beings representing the natural forces of the world, the wild representing growth and, you know, unchecked nature, the weaver representing stability, but also stasis, and order and structure, and the Wyrm representing destruction, but also corruption, since the Wyrm originally was they are not strictly good or evil, those forces. They are just part of the natural world, and originally, at least according to the Garou myths, the Wyrm was a vital force in the universe. It was actually required because obviously creation cannot exist without destruction. Old things must die for new things to be born, but the source of the problem in the Werewolf the Apocalypse universe is the fact that the Wyrm is actually absolutely insane because it has been trapped for, you know, time untold within the webs of the Weaver, because the Weaver represents structure and order. So it was getting annoyed at the fact that the destructive forces of the Wyrm were destroying all of the structure and, you know, and the stagnant sort of order that it created. So it imprisoned the Wyrm, and the Wyrm has grown mad. So now it's no longer just about destruction in the pure clinical terms. It's literally evil because it also feeds off corruption. But if I were to be even more succinct, I would say that Werewolf the Apocalypse is like a hardcore retelling of Captain Planet and the Planeteers, because it's like furry Captain Planet and the Planeteers on drugs, because werewolves are functionally eco-terrorists. They have sworn to protect Gaia, you know, the Earth, the spirit of Earth, and its nature, but they use extreme force to do that. Like, they are brutal and oftentimes ruthless, and obviously they are killing machines, which is going to be probably demonstrated within the game once I slaughter my enemies in the war form of the werewolves called Crinos. So it's basically furry Captain Planet with extreme violence. That's how I would characterize the setting in like one sentence.
We've been stuck in this cave for weeks studying Endron's movements. At least now we finally got a plan. I hope we're done here soon.
Endron Confidential.
Endron. One of the most destructive companies North America has to offer. Known for their violence and endless greed. If we left them to their own devices, they'd ravage this place till there was nothing left but dust. Not looking forward to packing all this up tomorrow morning. I don't like thinking that Ludmilla's on her own, Rodko.
I understand. She's my sister, remember?
And she's Adana's mother. I should be out there with her.
I gave it a lot of thought. Her chances of success are better if she's alone. It's as simple as that. If things don't go as planned, you can tear through as much Endron scum as you like to get her out. But for now, we stay put. Go. Rest while we wait.
What do you think, old friend? Yeah, that makes two of us. Not too keen on this plan.
Now, Garou, the werewolves, they have their own language. That's how Cahal was able to understand what seemingly was just a random growl, because it wasn't. This wolf, which is actually a werewolf in its wolf form, was probably speaking the Garou language. So it conveyed actual meaning that was understandable to Cahal.
Ava did an impressive job installing all this. I'll have to thank her for this later. Got everything squared away?
Not a lot to square away. All I'm doing is pressing a button once Ludmilla gets me hooked up. Still got a ways to go before I can do much more than that. If I tried to breach their network, they'd be on us in a second.
Don't be so hard on yourself. You're 10 times better at hacking than me or Rodko with your eyes closed. Just give it time. Besides, you installed all of this on your own. Have faith in your abilities.
I know, but... Thanks. A little pep talk never hurts. But how are you doing? Talk to your daughter yet?
No, not yet. I'm just heading her way. Hey, how you doing?
I'm bored out of my mind. There's nothing to do here, and it's wet and miserable.
We're not on vacation, Adie. We're here for Gaia, for the cairn, and you're here to learn how we do things.
I know, but couldn't I have learned how we do things back at Tarker's Mill? It's not like you've got me helping out with the mission or anything.
Try connecting with the spirits. Feel their presence around you. The pain Endron's causing them. That connection makes you a Garou.
I'm trying. Believe me, but I just can't.
Don't worry. It's always harder before your first change. And if the change never comes, if you're human, like your mother, that's fine. She may not feel the spirits, but she's the finest infiltrator we have.
Why didn't you go with Mom anyway? She's all alone out there. If something happens to her...
I wish I could've. But Rodko wants us to keep a low profile. And there's no one better at that than your mom.
Rodko's a dumbass.
Hey, that's your uncle you're talking about. And the leader of our pack. You know it's his job to make those decisions. Everything will be all right, don't worry. Try to focus on the spirits. We'll be leaving this place soon.
Now, he said she's still before her first change, and then he also said, if you're human like your mother, that's okay. That's because werewolves in the world of darkness, they don't actually mate with each other. In fact, it's specifically forbidden by the litany, which is like the holy laws of the Garou. It's specifically forbidden for two werewolves to have children with each other, because not only is it seen as a sin, but it specifically results in it always results in a disabled child, and that child is also sterile. So werewolves actually mate with either humans or wolves, and my wife is just a human. And as for my daughter, you're technically born a werewolf, so it's not like you become a werewolf later in life. You are born a werewolf, but you don't really know that until your first change. You either change, usually it happens during puberty and during times of like extreme stress. You shift usually into the war form, which is like the classic werewolf, a hybrid between a man and a wolf, a bipedal clawed killing machine. So you either change and then you were a werewolf all along, or you just that's what if you do not change, then you are kinfolk. Now kinfolk are those humans who have like a bit of like you could say they have a recessive variant of the Garou gene in them, like a union between a werewolf and Kinfolk has a higher chance of producing another werewolf, but they are not, they don't have any innate magical ability themselves. So it's yet undetermined whether my daughter will change and be revealed as a werewolf, or whether she will be just a human as her mother and my wife is. Now, all the talk about my wife being like the best infiltrator and her, everything is going to be okay is a huge red flag for me. So I'm like 70% certain she's going to die.
Shit. Cahal, wake up. I'm gonna need you.
Ludmilla needs you to get her out. Rodko will give you the rundown.
What's happening, Dad? Is Mom okay?
Don't worry, Edie. Your mother knows what she's doing. I'm sure she's fine.
A helicopter just touched down on the site's landing pad. Apparently it's some Endron exec. Their presence is shaking things up.
Tell me Ludmilla's okay.
She's okay. They've still got no idea she's on site. But their guard patrols have changed, and certain areas are locked down. And that includes the one Ludmilla's in.
So what's the plan now?
The mission's sunk. We go in there, get her out, and wait for things to quiet down. But to get her off site, the locked-off areas need to be manually unlocked. And Ludmilla's stuck on the wrong side.
Shit.
Fortunately, she has already secured a terminal. She'll guide you to her location over the radio. Go now. Bring her back. There's no time to waste. My sister needs you.
Now,
Ludmilla, I'm on my way.
Remember, stay out of sight. I'll open any door I have access to through their network. I've opened all the external ducts.
Now, coming back to the subject of werewolf mating for a second, I was always a bit uncomfortable with the idea of werewolves mating with just normal wolves, because werewolves are, part human, part wolf, and part spirit, as the intro said. So they have human level of intelligence and sentience, and self-awareness, whereas a wolf is, a wolf. So technically speaking, it's bestiality, because that animal does not have the capacity to comprehend the world on the same level as a werewolf does. So I was always a bit uncomfortable with that idea, but oh well. Now, it seems we have some solar panels, which obviously makes double kind of sense, because first of all, this place is off-grid, so you need to power it up somehow, but secondly, it's obviously more suitable for werewolves to be using renewable energy sources as opposed to like a generator powered with fossil fuels, because obviously that goes hand in hand with the whole saving Gaia thing. The lupus. Press C to shift Cahal into his lupus form. The size and speed of the lupus allows him to sneak into many places without being noticed. The lupus can't use technology, and if seen, will cause humans to react. Okay. Wow, that is indeed very fast. Okay, the way the lupus jumps is hilarious. Oh, that looks very silly, but also there's something immensely fun about this. Okay.
I'm area you're passing through should be deserted right now, though.
Premium coffee, hot drinks, and Otolis. Now, Otolis is another subsidiary of Pentex. It is a food production company, so it runs like fast food chains. It also has its own soft drinks, as evidenced here, because Pentex is like unimaginably large. It basically controls. It has subsidiaries dealing with every kind of business imaginable. Endron is like they deal with oil, with extracting natural resources, and with providing energy. They drill for oil. They like dig up coal or whatever, and they run. They run electricity plants. Otolis, as I said, is a food production subsidiary, but there are also like pharmaceutical subsidiaries. There are even video game makers and all that. I wonder how many of those are going to be referenced within the game.
Door's locked. Ava?
There's gotta be a terminal close by. Find it. Oh, and deactivate any cameras you see while you're at it.
Penumbra Vision. Press R to toggle the Penumbra Vision. The Penumbra allows Cahal to peer into the spirit world, letting him sense things such as threats, spirits, and their connections. Now, I wonder how deeply the game is going to explore the Umbra, because from this, it seems it's going to be some kind of a cheap knockoff of the whole detective vision from the Arkham series of Batman games. Whereas in the tabletop RPG, the Umbra and the spirits are like one of the most important things about being a werewolf, because a werewolf in the world of darkness is not just a mindless beast. As the intro stated, it is part spirit, and it perceives this whole other reality of spirits, and it interacts with spirits. It can talk with them, but also receive their aid. A werewolf's magical powers, as it were, they come from what is called gifts. They are boons granted to the werewolves by the spirits in exchange for a service or some tribute, on the basis of an ancient pact between the spirit world and the Garou, the werewolves. So I wonder how deeply the game is going to explore the Umbra. I really hope it's going to be more than just this detective vision, but for now we have this, I guess. Okay, disable the camera and open the door. All prepare for major weather. Home cooking, blah blah blah, paper. Nothing interesting here.
Guards. Ludmilla, we've got a lot of company.
The arrival of the Endron exec has changed their setup. Tell me where you are.
First aid kit, some extinguishers. It seems I can't loot any of the lockers. This is locked.
I'm looking at the southern part of the outer fence, and a shit ton of guards. There's no way I'll be able to make a move without being seen.
Southern part of the outer fence. Got it. There. That should distract him for a few minutes. But if a guard does see you...
He won't live long enough to raise the alarm. They sold their souls to Endron. They don't get anywhere, see?
Hell of a time for a malfunction. I'll go check it out.
Now, while this is a pretty common attitude among the werewolves, you know, to just say that, oh, all the people working for Pentex, they've sold their souls to the Wyrm, so they have to be killed with extreme prejudice. It's actually a pretty interesting part, like a moral quandary for the setting, in my opinion, because, as I said, like a solid majority of those people have no idea the supernatural in itself even exists, much less the Wyrm as this evil force. So they are just everyday people trying to make a living. In fact, most of them probably think they are doing a good thing, you know, providing their communities with electricity, or in case of the pharmaceutical subdivision, providing them with medicine. They are just everyday people living their lives, trying to support their families, and here comes this massive werewolf to tear off your head because it's convinced you're serving this god of destruction, but you have never even you don't even know up until that moment, most of the time, that werewolves exist. And here is this guy all angry at you because you're supposedly, you know, a slave to this evil being that you had no idea even existed. So I wonder if the game itself is going to comment in any way on that, or is it going to make all Endron employees like cartoonishly evil? Takedowns. A takedown is one way of dealing with an unalerted guard or civilian. Takedowns will increase Cahal's rage. The more rage, the more dangerous the Crinos will be in combat. Okay.
Any idea what could have caused it?
I don't care. Just want it fixed and fast. Some big shot just arrived on site. Folks upstairs want everything to be perfect.
Okay, there's another one there.
This fucker.
The crossbow. The crossbow is another way to get rid of threats. Its bolts are limited and must be refilled. Okay.
Hello there. Nice.
Okay, I can only carry 3 crossbow bolts at a time, which is not much at all. Excuse me.
I'm in the refinery.
Perfect. I'm not far now. Nearly at the passageway leading into it. Shit! Something's following me.
What is it?
I think it's a black spiral dancer. He's...
Ludmilla, just hold on. Fuck. Rodko.
I heard. No more sneaking around. We fight. Now go. I'll meet you with Rafik.
I'm done fucking around.
The Crinos combine quick attacks, strong attacks and jump attacks to perform combos and raise the Crinos' rage a rage multiplier is applied as long as the Crinos is not interrupted. So the Crinos is the war form of the werewolves, although, interestingly, this particular Crinos form is actually on the small side. I wonder if that's because the developers thought it would be unwieldy to have, a creature, for example, thrice the size of a person in the camera's view. And maybe it would be difficult to make that fit on the screen. But another interesting thing is that I wasn't expecting the regular Endron guards to even put up a fight, because most humans are they literally lose their minds when they see a werewolf entering their war form. It's a condition called the delirium, and it's caused by relentless slaughter of humanity for thousands of years in the prehistoric times by the ancestors of the werewolves. It has instilled this primal fear in all of humanity. So most humans, like a solid 97% of humanity, lose their minds when they see a werewolf entering their combat form, the Crinos form. So it's interesting that the line security guards at Pentex are seemingly immune to that. Now, there is some lore precedent for that, because obviously, as I said, the upper echelons of Pentex, they know that werewolves exist, and they treat them as their enemies, because obviously they serve the Wyrm. So they have been working on psychedelics and drugs and combat enhancers to give to their troops that would render them immune to the delirium. And they have had some success with that. I just wasn't expecting them to deploy it with just a random group of security guards, but I guess there is an argument to be made about how maybe they suspect that there's a werewolf cairn, which is a holy site for the werewolves, nearby, and that's why they have this combat enhancer prepared, because they were expecting a werewolf attack. Okay. Dodges. Use dodges to avoid enemies' attacks. Dodges followed by quick or strong attacks lead to new attacks. Okay. Okay, snipers in the next room. How do I stay low? How do I change back into Homid, which is the human form? Q seems to just change my stance. Oh well. Special move, Leap. The Leap is a special move that consumes rage. Leap on a guard to kill him promptly. Press 2. Okay. Combat stances. Press Q to switch between heavy and agile stances. Agile stance brings speed and faster rage generation. Heavy stance offers resistance and strong attacks. Each stance has its own set of special moves. Switch between the two stances for better effectiveness in combat. Okay. Special move, healing. Press 1 to partially heal. Yeah, I realized that. I noticed the plus, and I tested that before. Healing consumes rage. Okay.
I'll open that for you. Just watch out.
Silver damage. Silver is the Crinos' weakness. Silver damages will lower the maximum health for the rest of the fight. Now, that is indeed true in the tabletop game. Silver is one of the banes of the werewolves. Werewolves are incredibly resilient and they regenerate insanely fast, but silver is actually one of the best ways to kill them. Which Pentex, as I said, also knows. Anyway, I must admit, I said at the beginning I have poor reflexes and poor hand-eye coordination. For me, the combat is fast enough that I barely even know what's happening. Like, the enemies... I don't treat them as separate people, and I don't really think that much about what I'm doing, because it's all happening so fast. You know, I'm just mashing buttons and hoping it's going to work, which, you know, might spell trouble at a later date, because most of the time, if a game is designed well, it's not going to be permissive of such tactics for long. So, you know, we'll have to wait and see. Okay, so I guess I change into Homid back automatically once like the major part of the fight is over or something.
Cahal, tell 80.
No! Please, no! Yeah, I kind of figured it's going to happen. Now, this is presumably
they mentioned in the intercom a Black Spiral Dancer. Now, Black Spiral Dancers are a fallen tribe of the werewolves that have entered the service of the Wyrm. It would be an oversimplification to say that they are evil werewolves, because that would imply that all of the other werewolves are good, which is not entirely correct. Like, they are less evil for sure, but they are still assholes, and I am going to elaborate on that later on, once the game drops some crumbs, maybe, of the past crimes of the Garou nation. So, the supposedly good werewolves, they have done some fucked up things. Lock to the enemy. The target locks make it easier to remain focused on big enemies. Okay. Currently it's kind of beating my ass. The Frenzy. Press R to trigger the Frenzy. Frenzy can be triggered once the Fury is at its peak. In Frenzy, the Crinos gets the advantages of each stance, speed and power. However, in Frenzy, the Crinos can't use its special moves nor healing. Once the Fury is depleted, the Frenzy will stop. Now, shouldn't the Fury be... shouldn't it be Rage? It's a Rage. That's the sort of supernatural anger that swells within the veins of the werewolves and that powers their sort of combat prowess.
Cahal! No. Ludmilla. It's me, Cahal. Listen to me. Cahal, damn it! No. You need to fight the rage. Cahal, this Rafik! Stop it! No! What have I done? Rafik. There's no time to mourn. We need to go.
Just reported back to base. Not that there's anything to report.
No kidding.
Though I guess we've got a special guest coming tonight.
Yeah, an Endron rep no less. She should be here soon.
You know they're hiring, right? Think you'd ever make the move to Endron? Hey! What the...
All clear, Dusk. We're good to go. "5 years ago, I abandoned the woods of Tarker's Mill. I abandoned my cairn. Endron killed my wife. I gave in to rage. The Wyrm touched my soul. I had to leave my daughter. It was the hardest decision I ever made.
And in other news, Endron is joining the fight against global warming. The energy company today announced that their new biofuel will be hitting the market soon. This revolutionary new formula will be unveiled alongside the opening of their new headquarters in...
This exile was my only choice. I'd become a danger to my pack. I often wonder what's become of them. Of Rotko, of Ava, of 80. This is the closest I've been to Tarker's Mill in 5 years.
Cahal, we're here. You're up.
How much time do we have before they notice the guards on the outside have gone quiet?
They report in by radio every hour. That's our deadline for getting our hands on the explosives and getting out of here.
Customers? Well, I think the plan is probably more important for now.
Let's go through the plan again, just to make sure everything's clear.
You've got to swap the delivery label on the crate of explosives intended for Endron. You do that, and they'll load us up with smiles on their faces. All you've got to do is open the gate to their delivery bay for me. I'll create a diversion while you're exchanging the labels.
Got it. We'll have to play it tight, though. One hiccup and the plan falls through.
We'll have you sneak around back by their storage facility. Security should be pretty thin there, especially if you go through the ventilation ducts.
So what about the customers?
What do your clients intend to do with them anyway?
The Weatherstormers? They're planning on blowing up a big Magadon pharmaceutical plant.
Good fucking riddance. I know Magadon's methods. They're the scum of the earth.
And guess what? These explosives were originally headed to Endron, another megacorp of assholes. Stealing from them is just icing on the cake.
All right. I'm off.
Hey, before you go, are you sure you're up for this, man? You seem kind of stressed out back in the truck.
Just been a long time since I've been out this way. Brings back memories. Forget it. We've got a job to do.
Right. If you need me, I'm just a chirp away. Good luck, brother.
Okay, so they mentioned Magadon Pharmaceutical, which is another subsidiary of Pentex, but there was also a sign for King Distilleries, which is yet another subsidiary of Pentex, this time dealing with alcohol sales and production. So I think this is a perfect place to end this first episode. That's all for this one, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.